Billionaire's card declined. Then a poor little girl did the unthinkable. The late afternoon sun painted golden streaks across Manhattan's glass towers as Alexander Harrington stepped into a small corner cafe. Unlike the luxurious restaurants he usually frequented, this place was simple. Wooden chairs, chalkboard menus, and the scent of freshly baked bread drifting through the air. For most people, the cafe was ordinary. For Alexander, it was a novelty. He was a billionaire, heir to Harrington Global Industries, a man whose face graced the covers of financial magazines. His wardrobe was tailored, his watch worth more than most families' yearly income, and his name carried a weight of power that few could challenge. But today, he wanted something different, something quiet, something normal. He ordered a cappuccino and a slice of chocolate cake, then walked toward the counter, pulling out his sleek black titanium credit card. The cashier swiped it once, then again. A frown creased her face. "I'm sorry, sir," she said hesitantly. "Your card, it's been declined." Alexander blinked, stunned. "That's impossible. Run it again." She tried. Same result. The terminal beeped sharply, flashing declined in bold red letters. For the first time in years, Alexander felt a flush of embarrassment crawl up his neck. He could feel the eyes of others in line behind him, curious, whispering, judging. The billionaire who had everything suddenly had nothing in this moment. He quickly pulled out another card, then another. Shockingly, one after another, they all failed. The cashier crossed her arms apologetically. "I'm really sorry, sir. Do you have cash?" Alexander patted his pockets. He never carried cash. Why would he? He had assistants, private bankers, financial advisors, all to ensure things like this never happened. And yet, here he stood, helpless. Behind him, a small voice piped up. "I can pay for him." Everyone turned. Standing there was a little girl, maybe 9 years old. Her hair was tied back with a faded pink ribbon, her clothes patched and a little too big for her thin frame. She clutched a worn coin purse in her hands. Alexander stared at her, speechless. "What did you say?" She walked up beside him, opening her coin purse. Inside were only a few crumpled dollar bills and some coins, the kind people often tossed aside as insignificant. "I said, I'll pay for you," she repeated, her voice clear though her cheeks reddened. The cafe fell silent. Alexander, a man worth billions, stood frozen as a poor little girl, clearly struggling herself, offered to pay for his coffee and cake. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. "Sweetheart, you don't need to do that. I'll sort it out." But she shook her head firmly. "You look embarrassed. My mama says if someone needs help, and you can help them, you should. Even if it's just a little." Her earnestness disarmed him. She placed her few coins on the counter and pushed them toward the cashier. The cashier glanced at Alexander, uncertain, but he nodded. With trembling hands, the girl handed over every penny she had. "Paid in full," the cashier said softly, handing Alexander his coffee and cake. Alexander held the tray, but his throat tightened. The cake had never looked so heavy. He followed the girl as she returned to her small table by the window. "May I sit with you?" he asked. She nodded shyly. He set the tray down, then studied her more closely. She was clearly hungry. Her eyes lingered on the slice of cake before darting away, as though she didn't want to be rude. Her shoes were scuffed, her backpack torn. "What's your name?" Alexander asked gently. "Emily," she said. "Well, Emily, thank you. You didn't have to do that." She shrugged. "Mama says money comes and goes, but kindness stays." Her words pierced deeper than any boardroom negotiation ever had. "Where's your mama now?" he asked. Emily hesitated, then looked down. "She's at work. She cleans officey." Billionaire's card declined. Then a poor little girl did the unthinkable. Part 2. The thunder of applause still rang in Alexander Harrington's ears as Emily left the graduation stage. He had thought the proudest day of his life would be when Harrington Global Industries crossed $1 trillion valuation, or when Forbes named him Businessman of the Decade. But no, it was this day. Watching the girl who once gave up her muffin money to help him, now walking across the stage as Dr. Emily Claire Davis. Tears blurred his vision. He had guided countless executives, mentored prodigies in business. But mentoring Emily had been different. It wasn't about money, strategy, or empire building. It was about heart, and yet, as Alexander clapped, a small part of him felt an ache, a realization that time was slipping by faster than he wanted. His temples had grayed, and his once indomitable energy wasn't the same. Emily's life was only just beginning. His, perhaps, was entering its twilight. The celebration. Dinner that night. Emily, her mother Claire, and Alexander sat at a grand banquet table. But despite the chandeliers and fine china, the atmosphere wasn't about luxury, it was about family. "To Emily," Claire toasted, raising her glass. "The first doctor in our family. Your father would have been so proud." Emily smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. "I wouldn't have made it here without you two. Mama, for all your sacrifices. And Alex," she turned to him with shining eyes, "for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself." Alexander waved it off. "All I did was remind you of the truth, that you're extraordinary." They laughed, shared stories, and for a few hours life felt perfect. But perfection rarely lasts. The diagnosis. 2 weeks later, Alexander sat in his private doctor's office, staring at the test results that would shatter his carefully constructed world. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer," the doctor said quietly. "I'm afraid it's terminal. Months, perhaps a year at most." The words slammed into him like a freight train. For the first time in decades, Alexander, who had conquered markets, rival companies, and global crises, felt utterly powerless. He left the office in silence, his thoughts storming. Who would inherit his empire? Who would remember him? Would he die the way so many billionaires did, surrounded by wealth but alone? And then he thought of Emily, the girl who had once given him coins, the woman who now healed others. If he had one legacy worth leaving, it wasn't his company. It was her. The secret kept for weeks, Alexander hid his illness. He continued to mentor Emily, attend her early days of residency, and even sat with her in the hospital cafeteria late at night when she looked exhausted. "Alex," she said once, "you don't have to keep coming here. You're busy." He smiled faintly. "This is the most important thing I've ever done, and I'm not too busy for family." But behind that smile, pain gnawed at him, and he excused himself often to cough in private or clutch his stomach in silence. Claire noticed the changes first. "You've lost weight," she said one evening, concern in her voice. "And you look pale." Alexander brushed it off. "Just work stress." But Claire had raised Emily alone, working double shifts, surviving on almost nothing. She knew the look of someone hiding the truth. One night, she confronted him in his penthouse. "Alex, you're sick, aren't you?" He froze, then finally nodded. Claire's eyes filled with tears. "You have to tell Emily." "I can't," Alexander whispered. "Not yet. She's just beginning her life. I won't weigh her down with my ending." The truth revealed. The truth, however, has a way of breaking through. One night, Emily was finishing rounds at the hospital when she found Alexander slumped in the waiting area, pale and trembling. "Alex!" she cried, rushing to him. "What's wrong?" He tried to wave her off, but she was already